Welcome back to Cards and Comics, guys. Today I have another complete set from the 90s I want to show off. I already showed off the sister set to this product. So the Power Zone set I showed off, the 95 Stadium Club Power Zone, is the brother or sister set to this set. And this set is the 95 Stadium Club Ringleaders set. All 40 cards. This is a big set. And I do have the members only version of it. And I mentioned in the video about the Power Zone cards that based on pop reports on PSA and just, how the sales look and based on sales of the set itself, because again, the members only club cards came in a full set. It looks like they're about 1/10 from a print run perspective. So they're harder to get for the most part. Based on all those facts and figures I've been able to look at. So they're a little bit rarer than the regular version. And I think it's cool to kind of go through the entire set. It's 40 cards, which is pretty big to be able to get this full set. And they're really fun to look at because, again, it's a very good encapsulation of what the 90s was about from a player perspective. And the design is amazing. So we'll start here with card number 1. It's Jeff Bagwell, and to give you the visual of what you got here going on, you've got rings, you've got an eagle, you got this shiny etched foil going on, just really nice design. These are one of the coolest designs, and they've repeated this, I think, in some like modern versions of these kind of cards. I forget, I don't think they're called Ringleaders, they're called something else, but anyway, it's a great looking insert. Now, on the Power Zone cards, I mentioned that there is this kind of middle area for the stamping to go on those cards, and they were off. Like some cards were stamped in the middle of that circle, other cards weren't. And the Ringleaders cards are all stamped right here in that middle part on every card. So for whatever reason, the Power Zone cards I have some missed applied stamps. These stamps are all right in that middle area right there. So there's Jeff Bagwell. Here's what the back looks like. You can see it's card number 1. And there is the back on Mr. Bagwell. Again, very fun card. So we'll go through all the players here. So that's card 1. Card 2. We got Mark McGwire as a Oakland. A still. So there you go. And you can see that stamp right in the middle. And if you just want to compare the two cards, are they the same design every time? Pretty much, yeah. So just a different photo. So same design, different photos. There's Mark McGwire, Ringleaders. Again, show off some of the shininess on it. Such a cool card. All right, card number 3. And I love this because you don't see a lot of cool inserts with some of these players. Again, 95 was sort of like, in some cases, the last insert for some of these guys. I think like a player like Ozzie Smith he's not in a ton of cool inserts from the 90s. And I think it's just fun to see him on a card like this. So this is a pretty awesome card. I wish he was doing a backflip or something. I mean, he's sitting down and catching a ball. Kind of a weird position for a shortstop to be catching a ball in, but anyway, that's the photo they used. Again, really nice looking card. And I just think it's cool they have, him in the set. Next up is Paul Molitor. There you go. Again, some of the, and I was looking to see if like the National League and American League have different color designs, but they don't. So it doesn't matter what league you're in, you have the same color scheme. So there's Paul Molitor. Again, as a Blue Jay. Next up is Darryl Strawberry. And this is him as a Giant. So kind of a interesting, not a Dodger, not a Met, as a Giant. There you go, Darryl Strawberry. We've got Eddie Murray. Again, this is another player that isn't in every cool insert set, even though he does have a 93 refractor, so does Ozzie Smith. But again, you don't see him in every insert set from the 90s, and this is cool to see him on a cool insert like this. Next up is Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn was in tons of inserts because he was so awesome in the 90s. So he's a player that, even though his rookie's 83, he was very relevant in the mid to late 90s. So he was in a lot of insert sets. So there you go, Tony Gwynn. Jose Canseco. And it's always interesting because Jose Canseco is a Ranger in this card, while you have McGuire still as an A. So because he eventually went to the Cardinals around this time, so maybe it was just like a year later. But Canseco is already a Ranger at this point, so I think that's interesting. Next up is Howard Johnson as a Rocky. I just find that interesting. Howard Johnson, Hojo. I just remember him as a Met. To see him in a Rockies uniform, 2 All-Star games, 2 league leader rings, home runs, and RBIs. So I think he was kind of a stretch for the set, honestly. But the idea was you had to lead something and get a ring. So he had 2 All-Star games and 2 league leader rings, I guess. So that's how they kind of viewed it. So yeah, Howard Johnson, interesting choice. Next up is Andre Dawson as a Red Sox. Cool choice. Nice to see the Hawk in an insert set like this. So again, this set is cool. It's 40 players, so it's a lot of cards. But again, you get a lot of veterans that didn't have a lot of insert cards. Matt Williams as a Giant, kind of like where he started. He was a big-time slugger. Tim Raines. Cool to see him, the little White Sox uni. He obviously started out as an Expo. So, but cool to see him in his White Sox, kind of like that cool black. Best uniform of the Sox I've ever had, that black uniform there. I love seeing Frank Thomas in it. Fred McGriff as a Brave. That's awesome to see that card. Cool. There, and then here's the big dog. Here is Mr. Griffey. So Griffey is card number 14, and you can see, trying to show off some of the shininess on the card. But yeah, and again, this whole set is really nice, and that's the good thing about cards coming from these sets, is they all have pretty much the same condition. These are all pretty nice. I'm going to say 8s and 9s. I would never say any cards like this will grade a 10, just because how hard PSA is, and just these cards are condition sensitive. From a etch foil perspective, those cards just damage easier, on the edges and the corners. But again, there is Mr. Griffey. He is the big dog in this set. So there you go. Next up is Gary Sheffield. He was a monster player at this time. Him as a Marlin. I think they won the World Series when he was there. Interesting to see Eckersley on, all these sluggers, and you got, Eckersley. He won a lot of rings, so I can see why he was on that set. But that would have been very close to the end of his career. Honestly, I can't imagine Eckersley had a lot of years left at this point. Kevin Mitchell. So yeah, as a red. So that's just, I'm more used to seeing him as a Giant, but there you go, Kevin Mitchell. Next up is Will Clark, already as a Ranger. So you see the Rangers were kind of transforming themselves. Canseco, Clark, Ivan Rodriguez. It's interesting they never won anything. I don't think they had enough pitching, but a lot of sluggers. Juan Gonzalez, that team was like a mash unit, man, mashing the ball. Darren Dalton. It's just interesting they had so many sluggers on that team. They also had Rusty Greer, Dean Palmer. So it's just interesting. They never really won anything. Darren Dalton, very good catcher. Paul O'Neill, our first Yankee He won a lot of rings, but it's a little early in that run for them. But Paul O'Neill. Julio Franco as a White Sox. That's just interesting. That's not the team I associate him with very often. That's a cool card. Albert Bell, still in his Cleveland uni. So it's just interesting that you've got the dichotomy of Julio Franco as a White Sox and Albert Bell as a Indian still. And I think of them more often in the opposite uniform. So I think that's just interesting. Mentioned Juan Gonzalez. Here he is. And again, you're seeing all the stamps in the right spot. But again, Juan Gonzalez was the MVP, a big time slugger. Kirby Puckett. Again, that's why, again, this set is really appealing to me because, again, Andre Dawson, Kirby Puckett, Ozzie Smith, a lot of the veterans, Eddie Murray, that you don't see in these kind of hyper cool inserts. You know, like they a lot of times they put the veterans like this into not Puckett so much, but like an Andre Dawson and a very like basic set, you know, and not the cool, you know, cool die cut, cool, awesome, looking insert set. You know that Griffey was always in. You know, so it's just cool to see one insert set that has all these vets on a really cool looking card. Joe Carter, another guy, big veteran guy. I mean, his rookie card is 84. So you got Joe Carter. Puckett's 85. Ozzie Smith is 79. So a lot of older guys here. Paul Molitor, 78. So Frank Thomas, there is the other big guy. Again, he's in that cool black uni. My favorite. I like the photo actually. I like that, showing him doing that follow through. It's interesting. I saw a TikTok of a sports reporter talking about Frank Thomas, where he said basically that his teammates did not care for him as much because he was a big personal stat guy and wouldn't say swing like to say to do sacrifice flies or do things like that to help the team score runs. I don't know if I really believe it too much because his stats, he did a lot of sacrifice flies. He walked a lot, and he talked about how that was a negative thing because So I don't know. I'd like to hear from his teammates, not a reporter, because sometimes they get it wrong. But anyway, that was interesting that he was talking about Thomas not being a favorite of his teammates. Cal Ripken, really fun card for Mr. Ripken. Again, he would have been obviously still a big stud at this point. John Olerud, interesting. His rookie card's, I believe, 90, so this is pretty early in his career. But he was a very solid, good player. And again, this says he has one All-Star game and one league leader at this point. Ruben Sierra, yeah, again. This is after he played for the Rangers, but again, the Rangers went from Sierra to Gonzalez, and then Ivan Rodriguez. I mean, they had a lot of good players, but just, only one pitcher I can remember. I think Kevin Brown pitched for him. But again, he's a 4-time All-Star, led the league in RBIs one time, so he was a very good player for a lot of years. I mean, 4-time All-Star, that's nothing to sneeze at. Barry Bonds, here we go. Bonds is already in his painful for us Pirate fans giant jersey, but there you go. And then he's got 4 All-Star games, 2 league leaders in home runs and RBIs, 3 MVPs already, so pretty good already. And then he goes on to win a whole bunch more, right? And then he gets suspicious of PDs and is never going to make the Hall of Fame as it stands today. There's Cecil Fielder. 5 league leader rings. So he national home run, 1991 and RBI. So 2 years for that, 3 years for RBIs, 3 All-Star games. So you forget kind of like Fielder wasn't a 1-year wonder. He led the league in home runs in multiple years and RBIs in multiple years. Was a multiple All-Star as well. So, he wasn't just a 1-year hit a lot of home runs kind of guy. Roger Clemens. Obviously, this guy had tons of awards, won a lot of Cy Youngs. 5 All-Star games, 6 league leaders, 2 MVP, and 3 Cy Young. So, yeah, he was pretty much a big stud. Sad that he got caught up in that whole PED thing as well. We're at card 32. He's card 33. Mr. Don Mattingly. It's great to see him in sets like this. It's a great card look for him too. I mean, it's just a great. I like it when the photo is a little bit to the right, because then you can see this cool design here. When the player's standing way to that border edge, like Clemens, you kind of how it blocks some of that cool design. I think the best part of that design that's just really cool there and right here. So being right in the middle with the eagle just kind of really, I love when the player's right in that middle of that card. It really frames it up nicely. Terry Pendleton. Terry Pendleton won, I believe, was it 2 MVPs? At least one. So a lot of people think he stole it from Barry Bonds one year, but he won MVP at least once. He may have won it twice. I don't know. It's one of those guys that had that 5-year run where he was amazing, and then he never really did much out of that 5-year run. Here's Mr. Ricky Henderson. Again, I wish he was standing a little bit this way, right? I think it would make that card look cooler. 10-time All-Star, 2-time MVP. There you go. And Dave Winfield, wow, is a Cleveland Indian. Wow. So again, guys, Dave Winfield, 74 tops. So, I mean, this guy is, it's 21 years after he started to be on a cool insert like this. It's just cool. Yeah. And 12-time All-Star, 1-time league leader. This is interesting about him is he was such a, he was in an All-Star game tons of times, but, he only led the league in a stat 1 time. And that's sort of that Dave Winfield, Don Baylor, you got all these players who were just good players for a lot of years, but they never really were the best at anything. That's very interesting. I thought Winfield would have a lot more stats. Edgar Martinez, cool. To see him in this. I mean, it's just interesting because he was a DH, and again, 1 All-Star, 1 week leader for batting. So I guess that's why he's in the set. But pretty early card for me, honestly. Because I felt like Edgar Martinez didn't really get a lot of respect until later in his career, when he really compiled some stats. Here is Wade Boggs. That's a really nice looking Boggs card. Perfectly framed, right in the middle. That's like how you do it. I love that design. With that photo. Very cool. And then obviously 10-time All-Star, 5-time league leader, and batting 5 times. Yeah, 5 times batting leader. So led the league in batting a whole bunch. So he was obviously a great hitter. Wade Boggs. Then you've got Willie McGee. Yeah, this is a really interesting. Willie McGee was a really good player, man. I remember watching him play, and he was just fun to watch. He was a really fun guy to watch. And he's a 4-time All-Star. He led the league twice in batting. And he did actually win MVP one year in 1985. So, yeah, Will McGee was a really good player. And then when he was good as a Giant. When he went to the Giants, he was still really good, after his Cardinal heyday. So, McGee was definitely a great player. And then last card, but not least, and it's, very indicative of the set, Andres Galarraga. So again, such a transition. You got Willie McGee going to Andres Galarraga. And that just shows you how cool this set is. This is why I love this set, is you got guys who are super relevant at this time period, like Galarraga, who was already a 1-time league leader and a 2-time All-Star. Cool. I like that sliding photos. It'd be cliche to have him, just hitting. But that's the set, guys. You can see it's a big set. It's a cool set. It has tons of players in it that are very cool because it's that whole end of a lot of careers and the beginning of a lot of careers all in one set. So, and it's a great design. It's one of the better designs that Topps put out in the 90s. And I really think it's underappreciated, honestly. And they're very tough to grade. The pop reports are very low. So I may look at these cards over to see if there are some pop zeros I might send in to see if get a few of them graded. Or I might just put it in a binder as a full set like this. So I don't know. We'll see what I do when I look at the set a little bit to see if anything's worth grading. But it's a great set. It's a lot of fun. And I think for 40 cards, it's something that it really encapsulates the 90s really well, and especially being a 95 set right in the middle of the decade. And for that time period, this is a very well designed product. It's very flashy for 95. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time in Cards and Comics. Bye.